Our quorum is 5. We don't have 5 yet, so we're not doing anything with a vote. Taya will put the protocols up so that everybody knows how we conduct business through this remote world, as we've been doing for a while. So the first thing, I'd like the members who are here to introduce themselves. Nick?
Yes, good evening. I'm Nick Ferreira. I am a board and committee member.
Thank you. And Santia?
Hi, my name is Santia Policia. I'm a committee member and board member.
Thank you. And as more people come, we will introduce them. Usually we approve the minutes, but we understand that our speaker has another engagement tonight. So out of respect for her time, we welcome you. Amy, how do I say your last name? Andrea. Welcome, Director of the MoCADA, the Contemporary African Diasporan Arts. Yes, the Museum of the Contemporary African Diasporan Arts. And I think we've heard from you or a colleague a year or two ago. So we're delighted that you're back and to hear about a new entity that your organization is sharing with the community. So we're excited, and please tell us more.
Well, first, let me say thank you. That was me about a year and a half ago, pre-pandemic. And I was very excited to present because I think that was my first week working for MoCADA.
Right.
So I feel like the community board is definitely a part of my legacy at MoCADA thus far. So I'm honored to be in community with all of you, and thank you for this opportunity to present. I'm going to share my screen really quickly. Give me one moment. I am doing my best here. There we go. So, as you all know, I am the Executive Director and Chief Curator at MoCADA, and MoCADA stands for the Museum of Contemporary African Diasporan Arts. We are an institution, a 501c3 organization that began in 1999, actually founded by New York City Council Majority Leader Laurie Cumbo, on whether an African arts museum could contribute to the community socially, economically, physically, artistically. 20 years later, we reached beyond our walls of our physical space through education, exhibitions, and community. Our primary goals are to break down the barriers to the arts, explore social justice topics through the lens of creativity, serve as a conduit to expression, inspiration, and learning, highlight people, cultures, and themes that give art its power. Most importantly, we serve as a critical tool for engaging people across social divides and welcoming those who've been systematically left out. And that goes across, it's a broad stroke, you know, Black people, Latinx, Indigenous, low income, women, LGBTQIA+, seniors, people living with disabilities, et cetera, et cetera. I like to say people who marginalized communities. We also help to eliminate the financial disparities when it comes to Black artists, as well as empowering artists and curators of African descent to further their craft, present, and sell their work. Over the years, we've had over 100 artists from over 20 different countries work within our space and help to develop their own practice. Beyond that, every year, we work with over 30 different arts organizations, small businesses, et cetera, to present new works, to create community programs, et cetera. And these are just some of the names that have come through our space, many of whom are like big names now, and we're proud of that. We call them MoCADA first. What's really exciting for us at this point is that, you know, many of you who are familiar with MoCADA, we've always had this museum without walls approach. For us, this idea of creating more access in addition to representation when it comes to art. We've been exploring different ways of using curated spaces outside of our museum, not just within our four walls, right, of the gallery space, but actually taking art outside and making it free and accessible to all. One way we do that is through, you know, our street side gallery. Some of you who may have been walking down South Portland Avenue, you may have seen the side of our building or the building's facade, which has 6 bay windows that feature art on a regular basis. We're always changing these out, maybe every 3 to 4 months, etc., highlighting a new artist and themes that are really representative of family, roots, love, imagination, Afrofuturism, etc. But this commitment and dedication to public art goes beyond just the windows of our museum. We've also taken it beyond that and worked with, local partners. As an example, in 2019, these were 3 different art pieces, public art pieces that we did. One in collaboration with Spike Lee, where we restored a mural that was made in 1989, which was also seen in the film Do the Right Thing. We restored that just in time for Spike Lee's Block Party. We also did 2 murals at Atlantic Terminal. Spread Love was the first one, which is the one closest to the right. And the one at the center, Take It Easy, actually was a mural that we did just before the pandemic. And it's so interesting. If you read some of the words on that mural, some of the words are kind of foretelling what we've experienced, like, just breathe, relax, it's gonna be okay, etc. So that's what we believe in. We believe in, uplifting community, taking it a step further beyond just showcasing art on our walls, but really going into the community and showcasing the power of art. And this is what I'm here to talk to you about. The future of MoCADA. In addition, some of you may be aware already, we are moving into what we're calling L10, which is the public space that is adjoined to 300 Ashland. That will be the site of our new gallery starting in 2022. But this summer, we are actually beginning the construction on 48 Lafayette, or some of you may know it as 94 Green Place, which has been an eyesore for many, many years. Last September, we actually acquired the lot after many, many years of trying to access this lot, and we're turning it into a community sculpture garden. So yes, more green space for downtown Brooklyn, one, but also arts programming that is outdoors, that is accessible to all and free for all. What's great is that we will be commissioning artists on a regular basis in terms of the sculpture. So every season, there'll be a new kind of sculpture that is presented with workshops that are associated with that piece. But beyond that, we will also be making use of that huge wall that you see there, that's in the bottom photo, that brick wall. We'll be making use of that, creating murals, photographs, etc., messages to further inspire the community in a big way. So if you look at our construction plans, which should begin, currently we're working with the city to kind of confirm all of the details, but we should begin construction as early as July, and it'll be an 82-day process. We are excavating the land and we are repaving that lot, and we're removing the current fence and adding a new 4-foot fence around the perimeter, in addition to adding seating, et cetera, and ensuring that drainage isn't moving into any other lot or into the street. I should also mention that city bikes that are located on Lafayette, at the corner of Lafayette and Fort Green Place, will be moved to a new location. I implore all of you, if there is a specific location that you prefer these city bikes to move, feel free to reach out to me. My email is pretty easy. It's amy@mocada.org, because I am trying to get as many votes for the new placement of these city bikes. Next slide. So these slides, the next few slides are essentially detailing some of our early kind of plans of how this lot may look once excavation has been done and it's been repaved with asphalt, etc. So we're looking at an aerial view of the lot. Essentially, what we're looking at is a space that is both a green space and also a performance space. So it's easily convertible, it's flexible in that way. The purple lines, so to speak, is a pathway in the event that we have major artworks on display inside or on the lot itself and not on the walls. So this is one example of what the lot may look like on one particular day. And what's really exciting is that we partnered with Closed Gardens, a local organization that's actually our neighbor, to help with these designs and also install the plants, etc. This is another setup for what the lot may look like. say if we have, some sort of gathering or dinner, etc. We want to make this open to the community in this way so that folks feel comfortable coming out and seating, and then still enjoying the greenery, etc. The squares on this, just so you know, also includes plants, non-edible plants as well. It's just not detailed in that way on this slide. Here's an example of what the site might look like if we're having a performance or a screening. Some of you may be familiar with our longstanding and the longest running film festival for kids that has been presented by MoCADA since 2000. It's called the Kid Flicks Film Festival, which we do every August. So we are planning to do Kid Flicks on grounds in the future, not in 2021, most likely in 2022. But this is what it might look like. And quote unquote stage is not really a stage, it might be a screen. This design is if we open up the entire lot for a specific event where we've designed the space to be modular, where our planters can actually move to one side or to the alternate side, etc., to create more space. And I implore you, again, we do want to partner with organizations as we've done for many years at A.D. Hansen. We also want to partner with organizations, individuals, communities, small businesses, etc., to program this lot at 48 Lafayette, AKA 90 Fort Greene Place. So this is what our timeline looks like. So last year, we purchased the lot in August, finalized the deed somewhere in September. Currently, we're in the process of debris removal. We've added a fence netting around the perimeter. We actually had our first mural installed last weekend for Juneteenth as part of our celebration. It's an artist by the name of Galina Metaferia, which you'll see on the next page, in partnership with Art Bridge. And we'll begin starting the finalization of the first sculpture and planning the installation over the weeks to come. In July, the city bikes will be removed and moved to a new location within a 5-mile, 10-mile radius. Between July to September is when the actual construction process will begin. And this is a process of 82 days, no longer than that. And we will do our best not to have any construction done on Saturdays, because I also live in Brooklyn, in Fort Greene. And I know how much of a struggle that construction can be on the weekends when we're trying to sleep in. So that is a promise that I can make for sure. And then in August 2021 is when we will begin landscaping and the installation of the art. And then September, hopefully, if all goes well, we'll be opening the garden. And again, the garden will be open 7 days a week from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. And I'm going to say TBD because this is still a work in progress. But as of right now, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., free and open to all. And I hope that you will visit us. And if you haven't seen it, this is the first mural that we've already erected in the garden. So again, thank you for your time. Thank you for listening. If you'd like to get in touch with me, here are my details. Again, my email is amy@mocada.org, and I look forward to hearing from you all.
Thank you so much. This is so exciting. It's just a beautiful thing. I can't wait for September. So first I want to ask, I want to introduce two more committee members that have joined us. My co-chair, can you introduce yourself? Dorothea?
Hi, I'm Dorothea Thompson Manning, co-chair of Youth Education and Cultural Affairs.
Thank you. And Sam?
Hi, I'm Sam Johnson, board member and committee member.
Thank you. So I just want to ask the committee members, are there any questions for Amy? I mean, this is just amazing and astounding, and your timeline is, it's like it's happening, you know.
This is Dorothea. I have some questions. It's a
Sure.
wonderful undertaking, but I do have some questions.
Sure.
You said it was purchased last year.
Yes.
What type of financing was done to allow you to purchase this lot?
Thank you so much for asking that question. It's a brilliant question. We actually got a grant from DASNY, from the state, in order to
Okay.
purchase the lot for specific community use. So we can only make it a community garden or some other function specifically built for the community. As an example, agriculture is really important to me, as well as, just looking at climate change. So one of the programs that we're implementing is specifically focused on youth and teaching them about how to farm, how to build, how to plant, why trees are so important to our community, et cetera. And we're working with Brooklyn Community Arts and Media High School, as well as some of the schools that we've worked with for the last 15 years through our Artisan Schools program to implement that. So that's how we purchased the land.
And I have one more question. I'm sorry, also dealing with financing. I mean, it's a great, what's happening is going to be really good, but you know, I like to get into the details.
Go for it.
Things just don't happen.
Right.
Where's the funding going to come from to do all of these wonderful things that you plan on doing?
Good question. So MoCADA has been around for 22 years, as you know. So for us, our programming, the programming that's happening on the lot is already baked into the programming that we're doing at L10 and also at 80 Hanson. So for instance, you know, we have a creators in residence program. Some of those artists will be working on the sculpture garden to help implement some of those workshops for kids. We have a Masters at Work program, which is an artist-based program for medium level artists. We already have funding for that. So a lot of those artists will be performing, et cetera, within that space. So in terms of funding for the lot, it's very minimal in terms of upkeep, et cetera, because the plants, the installation and the actual construction is the heavy lift. Everything thereafter is programmatic, which is, as I said, already baked into our program.
Okay, thank you.
No worries.
Are there any other?
Sorry, I have a question to Sam. I'm really excited for this project to come into fruition. I know you guys have been working on it for quite some time. So congratulations to your team. I do have a few questions. One, in regards to the lower seasons when there's not as much activity around the winter months. I know it's obviously an open space. What are the projected plans for utilizing of that space? That's the first question I have.
A very good question. So in the late fall months, we will still be planting, et cetera, and you know, focusing on agricultural workshops. So that will still be happening. But like many other sculpture spaces, I think between late November and maybe late February, we will remain closed only because of snow, et cetera. But beyond that, we are open every other season.
Okay. And then also for the maintenance of this facility, it looks like, you know, a really amazing space and you guys are going to have a lot of things going on. Do you already have that also baked into your plan about who's going to be managing the maintenance and facility? And also for the surrounding area, if it becomes a little too, not necessarily chaotic, but if there becomes some little, you know, rodents or whatever that comes, like how are you guys going to manage that as well, as along with the communication with the community members around?
Good question. I think you've asked a couple of questions in one. So with regards to upkeep of the yard itself, the community garden, we're working with Flo's Garden. They're not just installing, they are going to maintain the lot consistently beyond installation. Also, we've employed
Amy, I'm sorry, who is that? Who'd you say?
Flo's Gardens.
Thank you.
Yeah, they're located on Hanson Place, right next door to 80 Hanson. Also, we've employed Foot Soldiers. So Foot Soldiers is an organization based in Bed-Stuy. Their primary work is, you know, cleanup, et cetera, and we've worked with them multiple times. So they will be maintaining the sidewalks, the park, to ensure that there's no trash consistently, and they'll be removing debris on a regular basis. So we've already employed them. They've already started working with us, which I'm really excited about. But beyond that, you know, I know for me, what's really important as well is making sure that we have security, ensure that in terms of when we may have events, et cetera, because we want to make sure that we're not spilling out into the street. We want to make sure that all of our events are contained. So we've been thinking about that as well. And we've employed a security company who's actually based on Fort Greene Place. So it's perfect. So we've been thinking, so we've been thinking everything through as best we can.
And I have one last question. I'm sorry, I'm taking up space. I'm just really excited.
You're good.
What is the protocol that community members would be able to use if they're not necessarily affiliated with a nonprofit and they would like to utilize that space?
Reach out to me. Please reach out to me, amy@mocada.org. I know that in terms of sculptures and artwork on the walls, the murals, we do have programming set until fall 2022. But in terms of programming on the lot specifically, we're completely open. So I welcome opportunities to collaborate.
Awesome. Thank you, Amy.
No worries.
Are there any other questions from members of the committee? Or I see a member of the board. If you want to ask a question, this is your time.
Just no questions, just also wanted to echo the excitement, and I love the, what's the right word? The sort of mobility, it's not mobility, I'm using the wrong word.
Versatility.
Yeah, versatility and the modular, how modular
Right.
everything is. I think that's really exciting because you still have the green space, but you have the flexibility to move it around, and you're not
Right.
locked into that, which is super cool. And definitely anything about climate change, agriculture, gardening, I think is so important and obviously missing in this concrete jungle. So yeah,
Absolutely.
thanks.
Thank you for that. And just so you know, this is the first step for me. I have a bigger commitment to food injustice as well. Ideally, by 2025, I would like to find another lot and create a farm where we can literally kind of solve some of these. After last year, I think the idea of food insecurity really hit me hard. And I want to put all my efforts towards that. So you're probably going to hear from me again, maybe in another year and a half. And I'll be talking about the farm. But yeah, this is a huge commitment that we're excited to bring to the community, and we invite community to participate in every way.
It's awesome. Yeah, Miss Carolyn,
Comment on where, yes. Betty, just one question, two questions actually. The exact name of the project, and if you have a website.
Well, we have a general website for MoCADA. This information, I'm actually sharing this early with everyone here on this call. So we haven't placed it on our website yet, but I will be adding that in the next week. And that's MoCADA, MoCADA.org. Thank you for posting that in the chat. But the other question you asked, I already forgot that fast. Oh, the address? Is that what you said?
Oh, no, I said the exact name of this
Oh,
project.
the exact name.
Address is Hanson, is what on Hanson Place?
No, it's actually 48 Lafayette. It's the corner of Lafayette and Fort Greene Place.
Right, okay.
So
Gotcha.
directly across the street from Brooklyn Plaza Medical Center. In terms of the name of this is called the MoCADA Community Sculptural Garden.
Okay, thank you.
No worries.
This is so awesome. It's just, wow. How will school groups be able to access it? I imagine you'll have specific programs at specific times, but at other times, since you're open at 8 a.m., will there be a mechanism for teachers to sign up to bring their children there and either use it to talk about the art or use it as a reflective space for children to write their journals and their poetry?
Absolutely. It's something that we're talking about actually currently with the school right next door to the two schools that are located in the building next door to the lot. So we're trying out we're thinking through, let me say, different models, because actually every school, every class has different needs, etc. So we want to make sure that we're aware of all of those needs before we implement a process. But as you said, like, we want to keep it open for schools in the same way that we have tours through the museum. There are schools that come, daily to kind of, or I shouldn't say daily, come regularly, I should say, to kind of explore different exhibitions and the themes that are inherent in those exhibitions. There are schools that come around specific months. They may come for Women's Heritage Month or Latino Heritage Month or Black History Month to explore different themes inherent in a specific exhibition. So we want to make sure that the model is robust and open to all types of formats and programs, but we definitely already identified one of our creators in residence who will be focusing on an agricultural plan specifically designed for youth. So there will be after school activities where kids can sign up specifically, or schools can participate by bringing their students during the day. So this person will be on site regularly to kind of offer these workshops, if that makes sense. So it's going to be a kind of tiered model, if that makes sense.
Sounds good. Are there any other
Sorry.
questions? I know that Amy has to go to another meeting. Any other questions? Hearing none, I thank you so much, and this is very exciting. We look forward to participating and spreading the word.
Thank you so much. Again, it's always an honor to be in community with all of you and to speak before you, and I appreciate the support. Again, feel free to email me. My email is amy@mocada.org. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck, Amy. I hope you have an 82-day
All right. Same.
plan.
Same. See me counting.
Great. Okay. So let's see. We now seem to have a quorum. We have five members here. So at this time, I'd like to have an approval for the agenda, which includes the approval of the minutes. We already had the presentation, a committee discussion on the statement for district needs, chair's report, committee business, community forum, and adjournment. So are there any objections to that? Okay, so then, thank you. So the minutes of May 21st were submitted and they were online. That was the meeting on childhood asthma that we had with the HES committee. Did people have a chance to review the minutes? Are there any questions or concerns about those minutes? Okay, thank you. So can we say that the minutes are approved by consensus? Yeah, okay, thank you. So the next item is the discussion of the statement of district needs. Now, in the past, I know we've gone through, in my memory, the previous years, and we've made some adjustments or had some questions, but I think we'd like to take a fresh look, thinking back, who spoke to us, which presenters spoke to us during this year, which issues do we have we uncovered or learned more about that we want to make a request for more support from the city in those areas, of course, including the library, which we always include, our library partners. So I think I'd like to just have a freewheeling discussion, if that's possible, on Zoom. If people remember specific programs or requests from some of our speakers or some of our discussion this year. And then we can fine tune this over the summer, perhaps through email with each other, so that we'll have something to look at in September. So that's the goal.
Ms. Feibush?
Yes.
Hi, would it be
Hi.
okay to take maybe 2 or 3 minutes just to offer the committee some context about what the office has prepared to help you with this work?
Absolutely.
Okay?
Thank you. Perfect.
I will make this as quick as possible. 1 second. If at any time the visuals aren't matching what I'm talking about, let me know. Okay, so don't worry about navigating yourself here. I know that there are different levels of comfort with Google Drive. I'm just going to take this time to quickly show you what's available here. And then I'll also share what the office is going to be offering as an alternative to this Google Drive. Because we understand that some folks don't like Google Drive and some folks don't even like spreadsheets. So we've found some workarounds. Inside the CB2 board folder, there's this folder called BK CD2 SDNBR, Statement of District Needs and Budget Requests. Inside that folder are these 3 folders. This resource folder is from DCP. This is the archive of all of the previous Statement of Needs, and this is the folder for the current year, which is actually fiscal year 23, which begins July of 2022. So very quickly, this DCP resources folder is where we are storing any informational materials that the Department of City Planning is sharing with the community boards to help prepare for this work. They tend to publish things, I I believe they're aware that community boards are on recess in July and August, but their publishing schedule doesn't seem aligned with that. So what's currently in here are the resources from last year. We will update these just as soon as they're available from the city. Going back up one level, these two folders, the archive is pretty self-explanatory. It is a copy of our statement of needs going back to 2010. And the third folder is this year's SDNBR. Again, the most important thing to stress is this is for fiscal year 23. So it's only worth putting things in here if you don't care if the city doesn't start working on them until July of 2022, which is when fiscal year 23 starts. This is the spreadsheet that you'll probably spend the most time on. You'll see that there are some other documents as the office begins to go through the board drive and clean up from all of the meetings and do all of the archiving and filing for this year. I'll be dropping things into this folder from previous meetings that you might find helpful to review. Inside this giant spreadsheet, are you now seeing a spreadsheet?
Yes.
Okay, great. So down at the bottom, you'll see that Zoom makes this so hard. Let's see. I can't even see the tabs yet. Okay, so down on the bottom, you'll see 7 tabs. This first tab is just the basic 101 that I hope everybody starts on. And then the other 6 tabs to the right, there's 1 tab for every committee. And I'll show you what's happened there so far. Let's start on this 101 tab though. And let me just move a couple things so you can see a little more of it. Okay. So there's a timeline and then there's some resources and links. And then there's the current CB2 working committees definitions. I put these here because I know that when you work in your committees, it's easy to stay siloed in those. And this is just here as a refresher of what the other 5 committees do. Quickly at this timeline, so we're here where the blue is. This is the period of time where you can really just focus on research and data collection, coalition building, and preparing for the public survey launch. That will be new this year. In very early September, we're going to launch a public survey that will be very similar to the Google survey that the board completed last year, which was new last year. By late September, and YECA will be the latest, even with the revised schedule, Ms. Fibush, I believe you're still the last meeting of the year before general meeting. By late September, the committee requests should be finalized because they need to be completed and discussed at the September general board meeting, which will be at the end of the month.
I don't think everybody knows that the schedule is changing. So maybe after you explain this, you could explain about the schedule.
Sure. Actually, I can't speak on that quite yet because it's going to be discussed at the executive meeting on Monday. So there's nothing to report there yet.
But there's a possibility. I think the members should know that there's a possibility that some of the meetings, like the second Wednesday or the fourth Wednesday, the kind of structure that we've organized our heads around for a bunch of years, that potentially could change.
That actually perfectly summarized everything that we know so far. That's the update. In September, we know that the city agencies will be reaching out to invite us to consultations, and we will be inviting the committee chairs as soon as those dates are announced. October is SDNBR month, as you know, every single year. So here are the major milestones in October. There's going to be a public hearing in earliest October. Luckily this year, there will be a little bit, hopefully less distraction from pandemics and civil unrest, and we will have plenty of time to publicize that public hearing and hopefully get a really great turnout. And we'll have the results of the public survey by then. In early October, you'll be doing the board voting and prioritization, which is the same as you did last year on the Google Forms. I was thrilled that we had nearly 100% participation in that. We were not expecting that, blown away, very good. And then actually October X will be the general board meeting and then the executive committee meeting. And then every year, the office submits the SDNBR to the city planning by late October. It's usually around Halloween. And then there is a year of deliberation and some back and forth and some results. And then this is, again, for the budget that starts July 2022. Okay, briefly, here's an example from economic development. They are the first committee to meet every month. So they have done considerable work already. You have an advantage being the last committee of the month to meet because you can go ahead you'll be able to click through and get some ideas from some of the other committees, the ways in which they may be thinking about this exercise this year. HES has already included several. Land use, I believe, yeah, land use is in, Parks and Recreation is in, and transportation is in. I just can't reach that tab because it was in transportation. There we go. Transportation actually has quite a few. Actually, this is a great example. So, Ms. Feibush, which committee would you like to pick an example from to go left to right on the column? Pick any committee.
I think HES, because we recently met with them about asthma.
That's right. Okay, so this one actually has some overlap with you. So we have structured this worksheet as an actual, actually, Nick, maybe you have a better word for this. It is a worksheet. You work left to right and you work through, it's a Mad Libs, if you will. For those of you that are not comfortable with Google Drive or just hate spreadsheets in general, I just want you to know that we're going to be preparing and sharing shortly after the 4th of July weekend. The office is all taking a long weekend. We're very excited. We'll be sharing with you a Google form. So you won't actually have to go into this at all. We're just going to send you a link and it will guide you through a series of prompts. And you will be able to type in your answer on your phone, on your laptop, on your tablet, whatever, and it will automatically populate the spreadsheet. So we're hoping that that encourages a little more participation. And this is what that form would say. So the first chunk is, what is the need or the problem statement? The second section is, what is the actual request? Next section is, how are you going to make the case for the problem or the solution? And then there's a section for office notes. So getting more granular on a specific example. HES has said, the problem is that there's inadequate support for expectant mothers and early childhood. I think that sentence is incomplete. The specific location is actually is miscategorized, but I'm guessing that they had in mind, this is a place where the office would need more clarification. I'm assuming that they're thinking of a particular part of the district. The result we would like to see is reduced maternal and infant mortality, as well as lower birth, as well as reduction in the problem of low birth weight and prematurity, and increased feelings of safety and support for expectant and new parents. The target date or deadline is no better time than the present. I'm interested to see that this one just happens to have this very specific date of August 21. I don't know what that is, but both of these examples are within the time frame of FY23, which is great. The proposal is home visits by trained pediatric and neonatal health workers, as well as social workers. This box needs to be completed. What are the known or estimated costs? I am really not surprised that so far, nothing has been filled out in column F so far. We've added this because we created the spreadsheet based on reviewing previous SDNBRs and just observing where were some areas where maybe we didn't provide enough information to make a strong case to be approved. And one of those is, what are the estimated costs of providing a trained pediatric or neonatal health worker or social worker? There are ways to find out those costs, and we can help you with that work. But it's something that would be very powerful to include in the statement to just show that we know what we're talking about, right? Case making. What is the policy or history of this type of program in our district? So care and support for expectant and early mothers is a proven health intervention. I'm very familiar with this issue, so I know that what they meant to say was probably to include a lot more specifics. We can name at least 2 specific programs that could be placed into this category to just, again, to make the statement stronger. And again, no data in column H yet. This is, I think, traditionally been another area where our requests have could have been a little more robust. Who are the potential collaborators? Be they city agencies, be they nonprofits in our district, be they other, sometimes it's just other committees, right? We should start to list those. Office notes, some things that we'll be looking for. Which other committees could help work on this statement to make it even stronger? So I would recommend YECA for this one. Actually, I'll just enter that. Which city agencies need to be involved, because they're the ones that would ultimately be reviewing the budget request. And then finally, very wonky, is it a capital expenditure, or is it capital request or an expense request? And that's it. So that's just one example of how this worksheet works. What I really recommend is I really encourage all of the committees for the next 2 months, just go really broad, brainstorm, you know, sky's the limit. Don't limit yourself but also don't go too deep because, you know, so whatever this committee proposes, the board is going to have to do the vote to whittle it down to the total that we're allowed, which is only 40. So that's it. Thank you.
Wow, that's very thoughtful. It's a lot more work for us, but hopefully it will have a better outcome. So my question is, like, let's say we take the idea, like we were talking about broadband internet access for students and people living in public housing and so on. And this has been discussed in the media and the electeds. It isn't just a problem, you know, in our specific district. So we could find some language to say that the young people need not only the device, but the broadband, the internet. You know, we could find the words and say that, but we really have no idea how much it would cost. And should we be doing that research, or is that something the office would do?
That's exactly where the office can help you. Like, we're here to partner with you on that. And actually, there are models. There is data available on that. There have been beta studies done in New York, but also in other, I mean, it's hard because New York, there is no larger urban area than New York City, but there are studies that have been done in other cities. There are other cities that have implemented these things, so that there's data available. And yes, we can help you find that. Don't worry also about, I would focus on quality over quantity, right? Like, the board is only allowed to submit 40. So if each committee submitted 6 really great requests, that would be great.
So that makes sense. Committee members, do you have any questions for Taya? That was very helpful. Thank you for your presentation.
I don't think so. I mean, looking forward to the rollout of the new system, maybe to capture the info, fill it out a little easier. I know last year's iteration was even way better than previous years. So looking forward to see where it goes next. And also, Betty, to your point, and I think, Taya, you even brought this up in the past, of just mining some of our old minutes, some of our old data there, just to see who maybe expressed some needs that we may have forgotten. And
Nick,
pull
if
from
it would
there.
be helpful, it would be a very easy task because of that dashboard that we've been keeping for you all year. It would be a very easy task for me to go through for this committee and just send you all a bullet list of, here are the minutes and the YouTube links to how many meetings? To all 10 of your meetings. That would be an easy thing to do.
What do you think, guys?
This is Sam. I think that might be great for just reference purposes, so we can kind of review at our own leisure and pull out some things. Is it also with those meetings, the ones that we also combine with other committees as well, right? Or not, or
yeah.
just ours? Okay.
I'll include any. You had how many? Gosh.
Then we had like 3 combined
How many
meetings.
did you have combined? Oh yes, because you had a couple with Parks as well.
Parks too, yeah.
Parks and
I think we had 1 or 2 with Parks and we had 1 with Hess.
Yeah.
Listen, I knew there was going to be a reason to have this huge spreadsheet someday, so I think this is the reason right here. It'll be very easy to send you.
That's very helpful. Now, so this approach involves looking back at what we discussed, what we learned, and then going forward in this way. Is it also possible, or a suggested practice, that we look at our own communities and things that haven't been done in the past that maybe should? And I know I wanted to ask Sam what was going on with Farragut, because that community center, I think, hadn't been fixed up and hadn't been utilized, and there's a need for the young people there. So can we look at things like that as well, even though we didn't focus on that this year. Yes. Okay.
Enthusiastic, yes.
An enthusiastic, yes. So can we just have a moment of brainstorming where we can just go around and just throw out a speaker, a program, an issue that then we can see if that's something we want to work on.
This is Dorothea. I remember when we had the schools, the superintendents, they gave some presentations. And there were a few things that we mentioned, I believe that we could put in the district of needs, but I don't recall what they were at this time.
Mhm.
So maybe that's, if someone else can remember, maybe we can start with something like that. But unfortunately, I just can't remember all the things that we've gone through because there's so many. I just can't. So I know it had something to do with the schools that we said we would try to see if there was some way you could help them out moving forward. I think it was also the same thing with the library. Something was going on with the library, and we sort of said the same thing, that whatever it is that we were just under discussion at that time, we would see if we could help them by putting it in our district of needs. So those are the only two things I can think of. Unfortunately, I don't have the details in my head.
Ms.
Okay.
Thompson Manning, is this I think these are the items you were mentioning. These are the asks and action items from the meeting with the superintendents.
Well, that was a meeting with the focused on health, but we also had one with the superintendent of District 79, which was for the disengaged youth and needing the CTEs and that. And we also
I'm
had a
talking
meeting.
about the one with the health. I think that was the one that had to do with the one that Taya mentioned.
Right, okay.
Like I said, I'm not sure though.
Okay, I'll make sure that they'll be in the list of
Right.
links somewhere.
Yeah, well, in the minutes, if we look at the minutes for whatever it is, I'm quite sure it'll come back.
Right, and talking about the superintendents, one of the causes or areas that I would be interested in pursuing is that to have a co-op tech in Brooklyn, in the downtown area, we're a transportation-rich area. Young people can come from different parts of Brooklyn. Now there's only one program like that in the city, which is on the Upper East Side near East Harlem on East 96th Street. So that's a long trip for students from Brooklyn and other places. And that's a program that gives young people vocational skills in different areas so that they can get employment. So
Co-op tech CTE, are you giving the real words, Betty?
not 100%.
What's CTE? Isn't that what it's called?
CTE is career technical education. So some students go to schools that have a CTE program. So for example, they'll have culinary, or they will have marine studies, such as at the Harbor School, and so on. But Co-op Tech has about dozens of like subject areas that students can explore that are related to an industry.
Didn't we have someone present to us once before, a couple of years ago, that had to do with students getting technical training? And they took the students, I think, up to the early 20s or something like that. This has been at least maybe 3 years ago when we were meeting at the college. So I think we already have some data that this was being done. So I'm not sure what the difference is as to what you're talking about, as to what's already being done. And it had to do with technical training. I do remember that.
Well, I think that there isn't enough for everybody for every student who applies, who wants to have this opportunity. there aren't enough programs, seats, you know, however you look at it. So it would be good to have one in downtown Brooklyn.
Now, weren't we, was this George Westinghouse too? What's local with the CTE? We had somebody present to us.
Right, we went to George Westinghouse a few years when we could still go out. So
Yeah, yeah.
and they had culinary and they had
Electrician, was it
electrical.
Yeah, yeah.
They had a
So-
few programs.
So yeah, I wonder then, Taya, to your earlier point, if there's any accessible data on sort of number of applications to George Westinghouse or somewhere, you know, how many people are applying versus how many seats, so we could just demonstrate need. You know, slightly tangential but related, I was doing a site visit for a summer program today in an elementary, and the AP was asking the young people, what do I tell you every morning? What do I tell you every morning? And they didn't answer her. She had to tell them what she tells them every morning. And what she tells them every morning is, you have to go to college. You know, and I bit my, you know, tongue. I'm new, I'm visiting, and it's like, no, go to trade school. You know, you can make a lot more as a plumber or an electrician. So I just hope we can help that effort. I think that's super important as well.
Yeah, that's column H. I should clarify the language. If you don't have the data, but you have an idea for the data that's needed, throw it in that column.
Okay.
So Nick, I
Okay.
just put what you said right in column H. That's a great data point to look up.
Okay, can we not override but add to it? So this is I guess a web-based application. So let's say if Nick worked on it and the next day I could work on it.
That's
What if
exactly right. You can both
No,
work on it at the same time.
But I mean, I want to be respectful to Nick and or any of my other members and not erase this stuff. But what if I think it doesn't really hit the mark? Do I revise it, or do I just make another bullet point in there and put it in my language?
Betty, I'm so glad that you're asking about, this is a question about digital etiquette. And I'm so glad that you're asking this question out loud, because I think a lot of people just sort of suffer in confusion because they never ask. So there's a couple ways to handle that. If you're
I'm always confused.
if you're super familiar with Google Docs, you can right click on any square and you'll get a whole menu, right? You can insert a comment. Hey at, actually, I don't know Nick's email address, but I know Betty's. Oh, wait, maybe I don't. B5bush? Okay, let's not show everyone.
My Ferreira? Am I under
Hey,
Ferreira?
you can
maybe?
say,
I don't
hey,
know.
at Nick.
Nick Six? I'm nowhere.
What does this mean? Sometimes I forget that we're recording too. And you can just hit enter and it'll insert a comment, which will be, you'll know that there's a comment because there's a tiny little yellow thing there. But honestly, for you guys, just email Nick and ask him, hey, I saw that you were doing some work and I had a follow-up question about this. I think that's a lovely way to do it.
Okay, so contact the writer, you're saying.
Yeah.
Writer.
I'd probably do the comment thing if I ever get, you know, if I get online, because
Great.
but I think that's a good idea, because I would not want to dismiss what someone else has to say without the committee or that person saying, well, maybe I don't want to do it, but I think it would have to be a committee discussion. Because when we all get together and somebody explains exactly what it is, we may find out that we like this better. So
and that's exactly
like
what you'll do in September.
Yeah, I don't like to dismiss anything anyone else says.
I think thank you for bringing that up, because that also reminds me of something else that I like to share, because it's kind of reassuring, I think, Dorothea. A lot of folks don't know this about Google Docs, but if you click on File and click on Version History, you can see version history.
Mm-hmm.
And then you'll get this pop-up menu on the right. You'll see all of the changes that were ever made to this document.
Oh,
and what's great about that is you can see who made changes, right?
Mm.
Or the other thing is, let's say you made a mistake on this one and you just want to go back to this one. You can restore this version. Now, I don't recommend doing that, but I just, on a document that 50 people are sharing, because you never know who's been working on it when, But
Right.
I show you that to reassure you that please feel comfortable working on this shared doc. There's nothing that can't be undone. There's nothing super permanent. In most cases, we can retrieve data.
Now, what is the easiest way for me to do this? Because frankly, I don't like Google when
Yeah,
it
I
comes to
understand.
documents. I just don't like it.
Yep.
You know, I'm still old school, unfortunately.
I
So even
gotcha.
though I have a
And you're not,
Gmail account, I don't even like my Gmail account, and I got 3 of them. So I should just go into Google Docs and look for whatever it is. I know you send things out, and that's how I would end up with this drive, and then I can go in there and do what I need to do.
yes, you've got options. You are not the only one that doesn't like Google Drive, so don't worry about that. The office is going to send an email specifically about SDNBR after the 4th of July weekend. It's going to have links to this spreadsheet and all of the resources that you
Okay.
need specifically for this. But I'm also going to send you a link to a Google survey, so you don't have to type in this at all if you don't want to. You'll just
Okay.
be able to type into the Google survey and hit send, and it'll show up automatically.
All right. Thank you.
We're doing everything we can to make this as easy as possible for as many different types of working styles as we can.
Okay, so I have another question. So, you know, I'm certainly not good at this at all.
That's not true.
Can I just like, let's say, make a parenthesis if it's about the same topic, the same line? Can I make like another bullet and put other language, not erase, you know, the person, the previous person, and then just put my initials next to it, and then that.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Absolutely.
good. I feel more
You know,
comfortable.
certainly don't worry about typos or anything like that. If you want to add on to somebody else's idea, please feel free. It's totally okay if it's a worksheet. It's totally okay if this worksheet looks kind of messy, because you're going to get together in September, your first meeting in September, you're going to narrow down, okay, what are this committee's top priorities? Let's really condense our ideas into as few requests as possible that are really potent, so they have the best chance of getting voted on by the full board. I mean, what would be amazing is if somehow we miraculously end up with only 40 really great requests, and then we don't have to do a vote at all. That's not going to happen, but it'd be great.
I have one more question, not technically about this, but about the form, but you mentioned as part of the process, there's city agency consultations. So I understand, like with transportation, they have the Department of Transportation and other, now we have the Department of Education, or I guess the Department of Cultural Affairs, but
Yes.
but who would we be interacting with, or would we be interacting with someone in the DOE? Would the office staff be having a consultation with the DOE, and at what level within the DOE? I mean, how does that work? Because I'm not familiar with that.
Yeah, every year the agencies release invitations to agency consultations. And they
The DOE didn't do that in the past. I mean, I remember discussing it with Rob, and maybe it was a different chancellor in a different world and all, but I had hoped that there would be DOE consultations from like the district staff to some staff in the DOE, and he told me that they weren't doing that. So I want to.
I can't speak to how this process was handled in the past because I was not here, but I can tell you what this iteration of the office is going to do this year, which is when we receive invitations from city agencies for consultation meetings, we are going to be inviting the chairs and the vice chairs of every committee.
I think we did have that, Betty. I remember that being mentioned.
I think some,
but I
think
remember
some
that.
have gone at, I don't know how it was.
I don't know the details. I don't remember, but I know that there were, that you had a certain time where you could meet with the city agencies, the head of the city agencies.
That's right, Dorothy.
Definitely.
Yep. So
but I think the DOE bowed out of that opportunity. That's all I'm saying.
Oh, well,
because
maybe the DOE did. Okay.
that is possible. That is possible. The agencies are supposed to make themselves available. I can't speak to what happened in the past, and I don't think it's worth dwelling on.
Okay, so are there questions from committee members about this process, or what we want to talk about now in the next few minutes to get our minds going on this?
This is Sam. I'm glad that we have the spreadsheet. It's really easy to try to follow. I do have a question in regards to the Access VR program that we saw, and I believe there was a meeting that even the Economic Committee had as well. I would not necessarily a question, but I would like to pose that as something that we can dive a little bit deeper into to support. I think that as our committees are growing and becoming more aware of other populations, that this, community, individuals with disabilities, obviously is something that we need to highlight a little bit more, and figuring out how we can access resources or educate our communities to be more mindful about program services and entitlements that people have access to. I think another thing I would also want to amplify as a recommendation is also with the health committee, when it was something I just saw in the form that they were thinking about, that you mentioned, Taya, about mortality rates in birth. If we could also talk about doulas, there is an organization called Ancient Song. It was a doula service in Bed-Stuy, but they're the one I know, but I'm sure there's others that can assist with educating individuals on alternative practices for assisting with the mortality rate while women are going through their pregnancy. So that's 2 recommendations that I may have.
Great.
That's very good. But Sam, I would love if you could tell us more about what's going on in.
Oh yeah. Sorry, I just had it on my plate.
What?
Sure. You're referring specifically to the BCS Cornerstone that is in Farragut. Actually, I was just at Farragut to vote yesterday. And their facility, I would think that if we could take a tour, or either just speak with the director or the program manager with DYCD or either with BCS, that would be great. That facility has been very underutilized, and not necessarily because of the programming structure, so to speak, but definitely just the need of some love, really, because it hasn't, the gymnasium area has, some real issues. I think there's some rain that assists in buckling, like the board of the floor of the ground of the gym. So there's some real infrastructure issues that are going on. I think a lot of, and Nick can attest to understanding how Cornerstones operate, where they're not necessarily given the best structures, but they do the best, the teams do the best that they can with what they have. But with Farragut, definitely the facility is in dire need of attention. I'm quite sure there are some additional things that I don't even know because I'm outside of that loop currently, but where there could be some assistance in trying to find programs like what we heard from MoCADA. I'm not sure if Farragut is in connection with them. I know Ingersoll has been in the past, and also Atlantic Terminal, as we saw in the presentation. So if we could look at Farragut, that would be amazing. And then also trying to relook at the options at Whitman, where there was some conversations many moons ago about reopening that community center. I think that conversation is pretty silent, but having more community spaces within the NYCHA developments would be great. And Farragut does have a good space, but it just needs to have some more eyes and hands and support to gather. I know they did some not kickboxing, did some virtual boxing programs. Obviously, most of the programs are virtual. And they're reopening because of after school now. But summer camp, and Nick, you can give me more insight of what that looks like now. But if we want to talk about Farragut, I'm more than happy to kind of connect BCS to us and see where we could continue the conversation for at least the next upcoming fall. Hopefully that answered your question, Betty.
No, I would love to pursue it, but it sounds like on this document, we need information. So then we can move forward with stating our request and so on. Taya, within the structure of our committees and so on, is it okay for individual board members to reach out to people, get information, and then drop it into this form? Or does it have to be something we talked about? Okay. So maybe
I had a
people.
question. I just wanted to add one. Sam, just want you to know summer camp phrase is a trigger right now. So we're gonna
I'm so sorry. I
I'm not gonna
figured,
say
but
those
just
two
wanted to
words.
say it.
I'm teasing. Half teasing anyway. So I am wondering, because you're bringing up Farragut, makes me wonder if the committee is open to potentially even expanding that need or just adding a similar one. And so I would elevate cornerstone programming, right? So that is youth programming found within NYCHA facilities such as Farragut and Ingersoll. And when you compare those programs to the other Department of Youth and Community Development programs, so the after schools, for example, like Compass, or the Beacon programs, which are in schools, but they're like community centers, so they do after school and then weekends. Cornerstones are significantly funded at a lower rate, and they are expected to be open for the largest amount of hours, both daily and as far as a calendar year is concerned, they almost never close. And so even in the pandemic, right, basically we closed on Wednesday and most cornerstones were open on like Friday or Saturday of that very week while we were all home scared to death, right? They were already giving out food. So I'm just wondering, as a statement need here, if we could be asking, and I would recuse myself as somebody who provides these programs.
No,
You know,
don't recuse yourself.
well, whatever I need to do from a conflict of interest, it's just, this is obviously the highest need community members with the least support. And then just to add on to that, then you say this is not in a Department of Ed building. So you have no DOE support that the other programs have, and you also don't have the DOE oversight from a custodial engineer perspective and a facilities perspective. And quite frankly, some of these facilities, none of us would send any of our family members into, you know, to be in there at a long term. So maybe that's a way to hit some of these facility issues too, is to ask for increased funding for the cornerstone programs.
Yeah, Nick, I have two responses to that. One, this is one area where you don't have to ask anyone permission. If you think it's a need for our district, you are the expert, please put it in. And two, this is also the one area where you don't need to recuse yourself. In fact, your lived expertise, your professional expertise is incredibly valuable here. Like the ability to phrase and bolster with the right data and knowledge, like that is what is going to make this request more robust.
Thank you. Okay, that's helpful.
I think also to piggyback off of Nick's statement in regards to cornerstones, and I don't want to go too far down the rabbit hole, but also realizing what cornerstones have done as an impact for COVID. They've been overutilized in regards to, actually they've been underutilized in some instances to really provide the services to community members in this space and time. And they've really been kind of just focusing on what DYCD's requirements are. And I would love to expand where those conversations can be a little bit more robust in saying community usage when we're talking about like food insecurity or even the vaccinations, which it kind of started happening later on in this space, but being able to support those team members, those community-based team members, the nonprofit organizations and local staff members who live and work in that community to see how we can also help in advocating to ensure that those facilities are up to par as well with NYCHA.
I think you're going to have some great authors in this committee.
I want to add that I see that issue as like the capital money for the facility, because as well as the programmatic aspects, you know, they need to open a lot of hours and have a lot of programs and you know, differences in program. Not everybody wants to do sports or arts and crafts or dance or whatever. But prior to when you joined us, Taya, I remember Fitzroy told us that he had gone to that building and he said there was such a huge rodent problem and paint and plaster was falling down, et cetera, et cetera. So I think in addition to the programmatic aspects, somebody, you know, the city needs to wrap their hands around it and say, we're going to renovate this space.
I mean, an awful lot of candidates talked about it let's see what happens after November.
Right. And I think that we can also find resources that, I mean, I work more so now in the disability community, so that is kind of like my compass right now. But definitely, if we're speaking about like Farragut, for instance, there's like a ramp that is supposed to be ADA accessible that helps individuals get to from the stairs because they have a gym, obviously, but their ramp is not operating properly. We don't necessarily have to get DOT or even we have to get approval from DYCD, but we can find like individuals who do this type of work, like weather repair or accessibility repair for facilities like the Cornerstones to make sure that they are ADA compliant, to ensure that everyone has the opportunity to be in those spaces. And we don't really have to go through the red tape. So I think that that's another consideration as well.
That sounds, I mean, the specificity of that request sounds awfully promising. So I hope that makes its way into this.
Oh, it absolutely will. Yeah.
So I have a related question, Betty, you know, and Taya, Dorothea, whoever, you know, knows. I keep saying how excited I was about that asthma, you know, collaborative. And I think mostly because it was super results oriented, and, you know, getting the right people in the room is often the hardest, you know, thing. And we got the right people in the room who seemed super willing to listen to each other.
Yeah.
And set some action commitments, you know, yet to be seen what happens. So I'm wondering with some of these things, like, you know, even repeated needs of facilities, are there opportunities? Is it even appropriate to consider a similar experience, but we're bringing, you know, local Cornerstone providers and then the facilities people, if somebody from DOE is willing to show up, and it's this forum to kind of work together to hear the issues from the people on the ground, and maybe, you know, not confrontational, this is, you know, none of that, but just a way to really sort of learn and potentially brainstorm with the people who could do something about it.
You know, Betty and I were just discussing this right before the meeting. You have 10 meetings that you get to program every year, and it's so few, right? Even though it seems like they just happen so quickly, but it's so few. But yes, absolutely, particularly because this committee is not often asked. You know, some of the committees, like, their agendas are basically preset for them, because we know that the Parks Department is going to need the Parks and Recreation Committee to vote on 2 items every month, every spring, right? YECA is different in that this committee doesn't often have city agencies approaching this committee requesting letters of support, etc., right? So you have the luxury of using those 10 meetings to program. Yes, absolutely. Think about starting in September, October, November, start thinking about your FY24 statement of needs. Who would you like to invite to these meetings to really mine their expertise, as you did with the superintendents, right? Absolutely. I'm sure Ms. Feibush would be excited to have help with filling agendas.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, you're absolutely right. And traditionally it would be different, like very small groups that would come that would want some support, or people that had a specific complaint or concern, you know, small and specific. And then for a while, we went through a lot of charter schools and potential new schools that wanted letters of support. And now we're not getting that type of traffic to our committee. So yeah, we can certainly think about how to change by having a different focus, a different problem, and then inviting the right people around the table.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And it could be as simple, I'm just thinking out loud of just what happened today. You know, if, you know, Amy's presenting, imagine if there was a superintendent already there, because we always have a superintendent. The only thing she said she needed was partners.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? That was what she said. I'm looking for partners. And you might already just have the superintendent like, oh my God, I got, you know, 18 principals I'm thinking of right now that I'll email them tomorrow. And so maybe it's like always having like a high level DOE rep, always having the library. And then we're always having a cultural entity. I just feel like every time there's a cultural entity, the number one ask is get us out there. You're right. So I don't know, that might be an idea to also just structurally make it a little easier to connect the right people.
Sounds good. Let's see, so Taya, just something went on and then let's see. Is it in the chat?
Yeah, I just said I thought that's a great prompt. Anytime we confirm a speaker, certainly the committee could say, okay, we know that this, the executive director of MoCADA, I mean, and I'm a long time, very big supporter of their programming and their social engagement, and they have a sterling reputation, great financial track record. So when the executive director of an organization in our district like that comes to us, that's a great prompt for the committee and for the staff to just think, we know this person is coming to us, who else should we invite? Who would benefit from a connection with this speaker? Who might be able to help them? And or who might they want to know, right? So that's a good prompt for me too, Nick. So I appreciate that.
Cool. Yeah, you're
I have
welcome.
a
Thank you.
question. Are our partners or those who are invited to our meetings given the emails as when public announcements happen? Are they on our listservs?
Yes.
Okay.
There's actually, Sam, maybe there's an underlying question there that I'll try to answer too. There's been some discussion in another committee about finding a friendly way to encourage speakers to help spread the word a little more. And I think we just, we're brainstorming about that this summer too. We're gonna be real busy this summer, but we think that maybe we have to make it easy for them. So maybe every time a speaker is confirmed, providing them with a sort of pre-constructed package of, social media sized blurbs that they can share, and making sure that they're connecting with us on our social media channels, etc. As you all know, we were all very excited about social media. It was also approved at the exact same time that we lost a full-time staff person. So I'm looking forward to putting more energy into that this summer.
Great.
I was just sitting here thinking about like the young woman who spoke today, and we were talking about partners. Now, one time, things have really changed in this committee, and I've been a member of this committee for a very, very long time. We used to always have somebody from BAM come up and speak to us and bring us programs. We don't have that anymore.
Good.
And it may have been because one of our members was a committee member. She worked for BAM. She was a committee member. She was also our secretary. And we were always getting information. It's just like when the young lady spoke today about what's going on at MoCADA, someone from BAM probably could have had some other ideas about the use of that space, or bring in other people that could have helped come up with some other ideas. But, it seems as if we are not getting the same people that we used to get. And maybe it's the way we're thinking, because a lot of stuff is done with schools. I know Betty likes schools and she likes gardening, but we got to do some other things and think of, as a committee, we have to think of who else do we want and who can bring us more information, and how can we get them to be regular members of our committee to support us. And that's what we need to do. We don't have that like we used to. We don't have it anymore. And we did have it before. So that's just a thought.
Strong point.
I agree. And when I talked to Taya about like who the possible people are to present to our committee, to work with our committee, I've been talking about BAM a lot, and unfortunately they haven't either answered or reciprocated or indicated that they could come. Even after our member left our committee, for a while there was another
There was one other person. I know. I remember. She only came twice.
Yeah, but she would come bring information and whatnot. Yeah, so yeah, we would love to do that. It isn't for lack of trying. I mean, we have made outreach efforts to
Well,
BAM.
maybe we need to reach out to someone else at BAM. Maybe we're not reaching out to the right people. Maybe we need to climb up the ladder a little bit and work like that. So that's just a thought. I don't have a problem. I'm one of these people, I will go as high as I need to go to get what I want. So maybe we need to find out who would more likely be willing to assign someone, not on maybe on a regular basis, that would come to our meetings and help us and give us ideas and thoughts, open up BAM to the community a little bit more, tell us about the different programs, because we knew all of that. We knew everything that they were doing. And we could even offer things to the young people, because when they would have like different kinds of training and programs, but we don't have that anymore now.
Yeah, I think that's an important point, Dorothea. I mean, obviously the C, cultural is something that may have fallen off a little bit. I do think people come when they get something out of it, and oftentimes they're probably asking us for something, so they are coming for themselves, not so much, just because they want to show up at 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock. So I think that's kind of why I'm just suggesting maybe there's just a way we can maybe reframe it, not every meeting, but a lot of times where the folks know that are there. Part of our goal is to make connections.
Right.
We want to hear from you, we want to help you, but part of our ultimate goal is also to make connections in the community. And so maybe they'd be more willing to show up. And it doesn't mean a presentation, I hope, for everyone.
But we were not always, they were not always just coming to ask. They really came to help and give information.
Okay.
So we've lost it. That's the best way for me to put it out. We lost it. Why we would lose that, especially based on the name of our committee, is crazy. I don't know.
Yeah, point well taken. Okay, so I think I want to wrap up this part of the conversation. It was very helpful. I know we all took notes and so on, and we will participate in writing and in emailing each other, and certainly not deleting anything, but adding to and asking questions for the document, and really thinking through this summer which groups of people we want to have together, to invite together, not necessarily to present, but to maybe have a few questions, to make connections, so that it helps those organizations and their synergy in the organizations that would be at the table, so to speak. So this whole conversation was very helpful. So if I can go on with a few other announcements, unless somebody wants to add to what was said. Okay. So the upshot in the District 15 rezoning is they're keeping 261 the same population. They're expanding the zone for 38. 38 is the school on Pacific Street, Nevins. So they're expanding that, and they're contracting some of the other zones. But what they're doing, this is for the 22 to 23 school year. And students who are already in the school and the siblings, they're all grandfathered in. The things that we might be hearing about from the community is that a certain percentage of seats will be saved for English language learners, low-income students, students in temporary shelters, and so on. And therefore, if you're giving seats to those children, there might be some children in the zone, who live in the zone, who might not get a seat. So we will continue to follow the media and follow this issue, but at least they're coming to a resolution. And we were really part of it, because we made a letter and a resolution that they needed more time for discussion and to reach out to parents and caregivers and grandparents, and to go to parks and libraries and speak to people on the ground. So that was a positive outcome of our advocacy, I would say. So I did want to also mention that there will be an update given to the chair and the co-chair of our committee and the Parks Committee from Percent for Art to update one of their, Taya, one of their projects, I would say. All right, okay. And then
What's their name?
Percent for Arts, and that has to do with the public buildings that a certain percentage of funding goes to the arts, so that there's, I don't want to say a statue of mural, that there's some representation from the arts. Okay, and I'll let you, and Dorothea, I think you're on the call as well. Dorothea?
Did I get something? I
Yeah,
gotta check. I get so much stuff. I'll look. I think so.
I think it's this Friday, so that will be interesting
I'll look.
to hear. Yeah, so that is my report at this point. Does anyone on the committee have anything that they want to bring up additionally? Something that we should consider or we haven't discussed so far? Okay,
So I'm going to bring this up. We may have already said it. You just mentioned something that I think does happen often, where things are going on with the schools, and when it comes before us, it seems to be made clear often that a lot of community members were not a part of any of these meetings, right? Like, our schools truly promoting them. It just seems to be those, right, parents that are always active, always show up, and then we always hear from community, I didn't know about it, per se. We push back, we ask. They always give us what feels like the right answer, right? We've had this many sessions, we promoted it through this, that, and the other thing. So I don't know if there's an opportunity to sometimes support those type of community sessions where information is being shared about school changes, zoning changes, you know, whatnot, and participate in the education of the community. Just something that popped in mind. I don't know if it's aligned.
I think I can put that in the hopper to think about. My immediate instinct is, how can we maybe bundle these things better in our social media outreach? I would love to know, because I bet you know better than I do even. It's hard to tell sometimes with DOE stuff if we're being duplicative, though, because they send all of this information out directly to parents. So I don't, it's hard for me to suss sometimes, like, is it overkill for us to be just adding to that echo chamber, you know? But I would love to brainstorm about that. I hear you.
Okay, yeah, thanks. And maybe it's part of asking people in the know, Betty and Taya, like,
Yeah.
how could we literally, in this instance, like, for example, the rezoning that's happening, Betty, maybe some of the people you speak to would already sort of have an idea of like how the community board could have helped this
Great,
process,
yes.
if at all.
Yeah, I think, but I'm saying we did help the process by saying, hey, hold off and talk to the people. Because, and you know the DOE, they just have meetings, like PTA meetings at standard times when people can't go, there's no childcare, et cetera, et cetera. And I always say, and we also meet people in the parks, in the library, on the street, in the laundromat, in the barbershop. That's where people are. And listen to what the people's lived experiences. So yeah, we should keep that. So is there anyone on this call that's not from our committee? No, okay. So we don't have community members at this point. So if there's nothing else to discuss at this point, I think we'll be in touch by email this summer, because it sounds like there's work for us to do. And I know I'll be speaking to Taya and inviting Dorothy, of course, about who we think we want to be inviting next year and what type of, participation. And, I can tell everybody, so if you want to join us for that conversation, as we structure the meetings for the next year. So I hope everyone has a very good summer, and we can be outside and we can see some of our friends, which will be delightful. And we'll be in touch this summer. And is there a motion to adjourn? There's no motion? No, Cynthia. Sam? Is that Sam? I see.
Yes, I make a motion.
Sam.
Yeah, I think I got you, Cynthia. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's 7:37. We didn't keep people until 9 o'clock, so that's a good thing. And I think this was a very thoughtful and fruitful conversation. And good night.
So long, everyone. Have a good summer.